was different back then. Corona was a beer. Harry was a prince. Nobody was singing about having a wet ass pussy. I love that song. I love it. It was the biggest selling record during a global pandemic. How confused a future generation's gonna be. Because think about it, the bubonic plague, what was the song? A tissue, we all fall down. COVID, spit in my mouth, look in my eye, this pussy wet, come take a dive. Hang on, so people were dying and you were singing about having drizzly growlers. That's right. Any other questions? Yeah, who's Carol Baskin? Well, that's complicated. What's an anti-vaxxer? Ooh, that's the name we gave to all the people that died. Will split a crowd between fans of science and Facebook. I believe in God over the vaccine. That's handy. You're about to meet him, you thick fuck. It's exhausting, isn't it? So many anti-vaxxers in this country. Most of them are my cousins. I'm not sure about the vaccine. You took ketamine at my wedding. Wants to read my mind. You've got no GCSEs! My eye's against it's full of chemicals. So's your face. She's had so much Botox, every time she winks, her leg goes under. Why would you believe what you read on Facebook? Facebook it's a kaleidoscope of mania and bullshit. There was an article I saw the other day that generally said, are hackers secretly controlling our hot tubs? No one's worried about that. Even the poshest couple here tonight. I can't sleep, Roger. It's the jacuzzi. We're being hacked. It's the fucking Russians, Roger. There's some operative in Moscow. Shall we destabilize their economy? No. Let's make the outside bath less bubbly than they desire.
Stay home. How long? I don't know. Months, I think. How many months? Just months, bro. I don't know. It's gonna be months. How many months? We don't know. You're supposed to know. I know. But we don't know. It's months. Just stay home. Well, I have to go to work. Fuck your job, they said. Fuck your job. What do you mean, fuck my job? I don't have to pay rent? Oh, hold on. Take it easy. Capitalism. Take it easy. You still have to pay your rent. So hold on. But then I have to go to, well, send me money. You know what? Just send me money. No, whoa, what are you, a crackhead, bro? We can't send you money if what are you talking about? We can't send you, why are you stuttering a lot, bro? Just send me this money. We don't have any money, okay? We don't have any. What are you talking about? We send you money, bro. That's how this works, okay? We send you money and you allocate it for different buckets, right? You got Social Security, you have Medicare, Medicaid, there's a lot of buckets. And I'm sure you have a rainy day fund, bro. You gotta have a rainy day fund. And it's pouring outside. Fucking full-blown hurricane season. 7 hurricanes hitting at the same time. Send me some fucking money. I have a confession, we're broke, okay? What do you mean you're broke? You're the federal government. I know, we're in debt, okay? We're in debt. It's gotta Credit card is just a lot of debt, okay? How much debt? We're just minus, okay? We're just, I know what debt means, bro. Just how much minus? It's a lot of minuses. So much minus, a lot of minus. Just spit it out. How much is it? $20 trillion. $20 trillion? Who's balancing this checkbook? MC Hammer? Who's managing this whole situation? How did you get $20 trillion minus? Killing brown people. So expensive. Oh, it's so expensive. Oh, just so much. So, as you can see, we can't send you money if we're minus. Overdraft fees are piling up. We can't send you out of minus. What, Kyle? The stock market's gonna fail? Holy shit, Kyle. Heat up the printer. Heat up the fucking printer. Make $3 trillion appear, and let's funnel it into the Ponzi scheme that is the stock market. Because the stock market is a direct reflection of American hearts everywhere. If the arrow's going down, that means hearts and souls of Americans everywhere is also going down. But look, it's working. It's going up. Americans are happy again. It's going up. It's skyrocketing. Wait. How the fuck is it skyrocketing? We're all at home. How is it? How is this thing going? I thought it was all based off of revenue streams and quarterly earnings, and nobody's working. I get Amazon shit. Everybody's at home ordering. That shit should be skyrocketing. Well, fuck you, Jeff Bezos, and thank you, Jeff Bezos, all at the same time. Like, but how is it still going up, bro? I thought this is all based off of money coming in. Everybody's at home. Look, man, shut the fuck up, okay? Just look at the arrow. God, can't you just shut your mouth and just be happy that the arrow's going up? No, I can't, bro. We need money. Look, here's $1,200. Hush money. Shut the fuck up. Thank you. That'll last me a week. I appreciate that. Stop trying to distract me. How the fuck is this arrow going up, though, for real? Homelessness is all-time high. Look, aliens are real. Chew on that for a little bit. What? You talk to them? Yeah, bro, all the time. It's crazy. Just look at the arrow. All right, no, still, like so many unemployed, 50 million people unemployed. How the fuck is the arrow going up, bro? Look, Jada cheated on Will Smith. Chew on that for a little bit. What? Why, Jada, why? What happened? Something about entanglements. I don't know, it's crazy. Just look at the arrow. Just look at the fucking arrow. No, for real. Stop trying to distract me, bro. How is this arrow still going up, okay? Please explain yourself. Look, I got a hot tip for you, okay? Cryptocurrency. What the fuck is cryptocurrency? It's these little people inside of a computer, and they're just mining. They're just mining for these digital coins, okay? What you do is you move the real fake money over to the more real fake money. And what you do is you just move, once you have more real fake money, you move the real fake money over here and you just keep doing that. I'm so confused. Hey man, I got another hot tip for you, NFTs. What the fuck is an NFT? It's a blockchain of ownership. You know what? I'm just gonna put a plastic bag over my head. Fuck this shit.
I took that COVID serious. I stayed in the house for the first 3 months. I didn't go nowhere. I didn't protest. I didn't even loot. I really needed some shit too. I didn't loot. I really fucking wanted to be a part of that. I did not loot. That's embarrassing. I gotta tell my grandkids about that shit. It's the greatest time to be alive as a black man. I didn't even fucking get in on it. Imagine you ask your grandfather, hey, what was it like to march in Selma? And he's like, well, actually, there was a real nasty flu that summer, so I stayed home because of germs. My grandfather's a bitch-ass nigga, man. Fucking cool. I had to watch all the looting and protesting on TV. It was dope, too, man. I've never been prouder to be a black man. I'm serious, man. Watching black people come together and tear shit up, that shit was a sight to see. I was proud. I was calling all my white friends. Colin, you know what it is, hanging up on them. I was showing off, man. I was excited. I was so excited. I was so proud up until January 6th, when they stormed that Capitol, and I saw how real niggas loot. That was impressive. Holy shit. Say what you will, but that was some good fucking looting, goddamn. Black people did okay. We were stealing from Target. We got some Gucci belts. These motherfuckers tried to steal the Constitution of the United States of America. I didn't know that shit was up for grabs. I was watching that shit on TV like, fuck, can we get another go? Let's get another go. It was like watching Supermarket Sweep and motherfucker go straight for the caviar. You're like, oh, this nigga is genius. All types of racist white groups I'd never heard of. I was watching that shit, it was roll call, and the Proud Boys are coming. The Proud Boys? Boogaloo niggas. Who the fuck are the Boogaloo niggas? Why are these motherfuckers dressed like Vikings? What happened to Sheets? I thought they wore Sheets. Y'all too good for Sheets now? You're Vikings? I was embarrassed, dude. I was like, fuck that, I gotta start protesting. We're not as far ahead as I thought. I went to a Black Lives Matter rally right after that to support, but I must have gone too late. It was all white women there. Holy shit, you ever end up at a whites only Black Lives Matter rally? That shit is confusing. You gotta prepare people for that shit. They had signs, stop racism. I was like, who are you talking to? Each other? Just call your fucking dad.
But I am horny. And I got to critical levels last year. It was bad. It was a code red, and I was trying to figure out how to fuck safely. I was like, ooh, I'll make these dudes wear a mask. No, that's not cute, it's not sexy. I was like, ooh, so I'll fuck somebody I know. So I was going through the Rolodex, the Dickodex, and I met this dude, I texted this dude I matched with on Bumble, who's also like a friend, and I texted him, I said, hey, you wanna meet me at a glory hole? And he said no. And then he followed it up with, I'm actually dating somebody. Do you want to do my podcast? That second part, it hurt worse than the first part. Oh, wait, does everybody here know what a glory hole is? I feel like there's some shy people. Get involved, I'll tell you. Okay, so like a traditional glory hole, a classic, if you will. It's a wall with a hole cut out, and you put your dick in there, and you're like a senator, and a very cute twink is on the other side who kind of looks like you, and they're on the other side on their knees being like, yum, yum, choo, choo, my tummy full. So that's a glory hole, and I've been Googling like glory holes for ladies because it's like a very masculine thing. I'm like, where are the glory holes for the ladies? Are there glory holes for ladies here in New York City? Probably. That's not a yes. Okay? Truly, I have been Googling it so much. My FBI agent is like, is she okay? No, I am not. No. Very, very, very fucking horny. Also, what a good late night commercial. It's like, you've heard of glory holes. Introducing glory holes for ladies. But I can't find any here in the good old US of A. But I did find some glory holes in Germany. So I'm going on a vacation. And the way they do it in Germany is a lady lays on a table and there's like a wall that cuts her in half, and then her pussy's just like out for the taking. And all I could think was, what if nobody chooses me? What if I don't feel slurp, slurp, suck, suck? What if the only thing I feel is the wind on my bald pussy? That is a level of rejection that I am not ready for, okay? Something else I learned during the pandemic is you can order a singular bottle of ranch to your door, but it will cost you $20. So I'm vegan, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, she's a hero, it's my cross to bear. Thank you. And I was making some vegan chicken nuggets, you know, chicken nuggets, vegan chicken nuggets. How come all vegan food has K's and apostrophes where they don't belong? They're like, it's chicken, not chicken, it's chicken, it's chicken, it's chicken. So I was making my little vegan chicken nuggets, and I am a vegan, okay, before you have to, I'm a vegan, right? Except for eggs, sometimes Kraft Ranch dressing, and sometimes a rib or two. Okay, maybe I am not a vegan, but the important thing is I identify as a vegan, okay? I'm like the Rachel Dolezal of veganism, all right? So I was making my little vegan chicken nuggets, and I wanted some ranch, so I hopped onto Postmates, and I ordered my ranch, and I was waiting for it to come to my door. Ding dong, it comes. I open the door, and there's just a loose bottle of ranch. No bag, no nothing. I mean, for $20, you could at least give me a bag or tickle my clit, you know? Imagine there's a bag like tip or tickle. And I couldn't help but think about it from the Postmates perspective, you know? They're working through the pandemic. They're like, I am delivering the essentials. I am doing the Lord's work. Beep, bop, boop. One singular bottle of ranch? This bitch wants me to risk my life for some sauce? No, I'm not giving her a bag. No way, no how, no. And what? Make her neighbors think she's ordering essentials? No!